So you got this email from me this morning, and it says a more advanced JavaScript calculator. That's what we're going to build right now. All right, and it's got here class JS calculator 2.zip. So please unzip that file that's there and unzip it to the folder rather, and unzip it to your desktop. Alright, so when you unzip it, this is what you're going to have. I'm going to unzip mine right now. There it is. So let's take a look quickly at what we have in here. Alright, we've got a folder called class JS calculator 2. It has in it a CSS folder with a style file. It has in it a .html file, and it has in a JS folder it has a .js file. If you look at it right now, basically it does almost nothing. I can make this bigger so you can see it. This is the one we're going to do. The idea is if we come in here, if you look on the screen, and I put something non-numeric in here, and I click one of these buttons, it'll say here that the input must be numeric. Alright, so if I leave it blank or make it non-numeric. And the idea, you're all smart enough to know this, if I put in here 22, and I put in here 3. If I click here, then this is going to be 25. This will be 19, 66, 7.3, and 1. When I click clear, everything will clear out. All that makes sense? All right, so let's start writing it. So right now, like I said, you have all of the HTML right here. Okay, but what I'd like you to open up from there, try it again, hold on. Is in your JS file, in your JS folder, I'd like you to open this up. Right now, that's all that's in there. All right, this is where we're going to start adding code right now. So why am I even doing this? Because when we get to chapter 6, this is how we're going to start writing these things. All right, so I'm giving you a little heads up. You know how we wrote that thing yesterday? We did the thing with the with the payroll, and we went and put it into functions. That's what your next test is going to be like. All right, you're going to take and modularize something like that. Plus, I'm going to give you a program that's going to have errors in it, and you have to figure out the errors. All right, and make the program work. So the first thing we've got here, remember, what this does right here, this uStrict, is it's going to force JavaScript to be more restrictive in the way it looks at things, just so you know that. These are variables that we're defining outside of anything and everything. So these are variables that we're going to be able to use all over the place. What I want you to get out of this is these variables, there's 3 of them. There's answer, ANS, that's this. There's num1, which is this, and there's num2, which is that. Make sense? All right. So there's a lot of different ways that you can write this. So this is at the top of my program. What I'm going to show you next is actually going to be at the bottom of the program. So we're going to add some stuff down here, but there'll be a bunch more stuff we add in here. Is what I said make sense? So this is going to be at the bottom of your program. So I'm going to put a comment here that says register the buttons and set initial values. All right, and we're going to put in here what, I don't know, about 10 lines. Okay. Now the first thing that we're going to do is this, and I'll let you type it in, but it's probably not going to make any sense. Whoops. There's a curly brace there. All right, so start by typing that in. Like I said, it may not make any sense, but we're going to put in about 10 lines here in just a second. Just so you know, the first thing, look on the screen here. We've always said function followed by a name. There's no name here. This is called an anonymous function because it doesn't have a name. So its name is, there isn't one. This is saying right there, when the web page loads into memory, so when it comes up on the screen, we want this stuff to happen. That's what onload means. Onload is an event. All right, just like clicking a button is an event, loading something into the memory of a computer is an event. So what do we want to have happen when that happens? Well, first thing that we want to do is, now, don't type this. All right, don't type this. Normally, we'd want to type in this. Document.get element by ID. Like I said, don't type this. Button sum dot on click equals process entries. And again, I don't expect that to make any sense to you. But what that means is when we come in and we click this button, that button is called button sum because it's going to add the two numbers. Button sum, button diff, button prod, button quote, button mod, button clear. Does that make sense? All right. So what we're saying is when we go in and we click any of these buttons here, any of those buttons, all right, not the clear one, but any of these buttons, we're going to want to call the same routine. What am I talking about? Well, look on the screen again. Don't type this in. All right. So I don't care if it's a sum or if it's a diff or if it's a product or if it's a quotient or if it's a modulo. This is saying if I click any of those 5 buttons, not the clear one, but any of the other ones, call this routine. That's what it's saying. Now, you may or may not remember this, but we said we can make what's called an alias for this. So all we'll have to type in there is $sign. A lot less typing, at least in my opinion. This you can type in. All right, so that's how we're starting. And again, what that says is if we click any one of these 5 buttons, this button, this button, this button, this button, or this button, any of these 5 right here, if we click any of those 5, call that routine. All right, it's telling us what to do. You know, kind of the same way, you know, maybe you remember this, I do. My mom would always tell me, yeah, you can take the car. When you get to this place, you call me and you let me know you got there okay. Okay? That's kind of what we're doing right here. We're telling the system what to do when those buttons are clicked. Now, when we click the other button that's called button clear, we don't want to do that. So when we go in and we click the button called button clear, we want to call a different routine. And that routine is called clear form. We have not yet written this. We did not write process entries. We did not write clear form. We haven't written those yet. Does that make sense? You just haven't written them. All right? So let's write the one that's called clear form. This one right here. Let's write that one. All right, we're going to write that one right up here. And it's 5 or 6 lines long. That's what we've done so far. And as far as what it does, give me just a second. Let me close this. This keeps beeping. All right. Just so you know, all this stuff is case sensitive. See this? If you don't make this a big E and a big S and a big C, etc., it won't work. So take a second or so and make sure that you put it in there correctly. Now, please look up on the screen here. See if I can split this in half. Okay, not going to be the easiest thing in the world to read, but you'll be able to read it. All right. Just to show you quickly what's going on here, in here. This line right here says take whatever was in this text box and get rid of it. Just blank it out. This one says take what's ever in this text box and blank it out. And this one says take whatever is in this one and blank it out. Now that probably at least makes at least some sense to you. We're clearing those out. All right, so that's the first 3 lines. The next line, a little harder. Look at this. N1.next element sibling dot first child dot node value equals single quote, asterisk, single quote. What that is saying in English is put these asterisks here and here. Don't worry about what the next, sibling, etc. That's what we go over in Chapter 6. All right. Then this line here, dot focus, says put the cursor right there. Does that make sense? So that's what we're telling it to do. All right. Now, remember, this is what we want the system to do when it first loads into memory. We're saying if you click this button, do this. 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 Click this button, do this, which is this. Does that all make sense? All right. Now we're going to jump back up to the top again. And like I said, I realize doing it like this may be confusing. I'm not trying to confuse you. All right. But again, up at the top, you've got this right now. Okay? The first thing that we're going to do is we want to set it up so that when we type in this, that $, the system knows what we mean is document.getElementById. And it's pretty easy. Literally, it's about 3 lines of code. All right? So I'm going to put a comment here that says create an alias for getElementById, because that's what we're doing. And that's the whole thing right here. So again, what we're telling the system is anytime you see this $, look on the screen. Anytime you see that $, it means this. Do you have to do that? You never have to do that. But virtually 100% of programmers do that in JavaScript because it's a shortcut. That's why. All right. And again, I'm not even going to say, yeah, does that make sense to you? It may make no sense to you. All right. Now, look on the screen if you would. I'm going to save this. I'm going to go back to my HTML file and I'm going to run it. It's not going to work yet, but it's good. It somewhat works. So I'm going to put something in here and in here. Notice what happens when I click clear. I thought it would clear. It doesn't. Okay, it will. But right now, these buttons are not functional. We haven't put any code in there for them yet. We're going to do that in just a moment. All right. So, one thing you may or may not have noticed in here, there's no main. We won't have a main. We'll have a process entries. It'll handle all these, and that'll call some stuff, but it'll be fairly simplistic. And we've got a clear form that we already wrote, right? All right. And we've got this alias thing. So let's start writing some stuff. All right. This is what's going to run basically every single time we click the plus button or the minus button or the multiply button or the divide button or the modulo button. This is what's going to run. All right. So what do? Well, we're going to start by declaring some variables. And I'm going to write here local variables because they're only known really inside of here. In fact, I'm not even going to say local. I'm just going to say variables. Why? We don't even have to declare them. We declare them out here. We already have N1 and N2. So forget that. Just type in here N1 equals parse float. Remember that? Parse float $n1 dot value. See these variables that we created up here? In English, what we're doing is we're saying, take the value that's in here and stick it in a variable called n1. Take the value that's in here and stick it in the variable called n2. That's what these two lines are doing. I'm not even going to say, does that make sense? I'm just telling you that's what they're doing. All right, let's create a few more variables here. We're going to create another variable just called ans that's going to hold our answer. Right now, we haven't done anything yet, so rather than holding the answer, it's just going to hold 0. All right, but that's going to be our answer. Now, notice I'm in here and I'm typing in var. I think you'd agree when you look up on the screen here that in here, all the stuff you see in gray, I am inside of a function that's called process entries. Does that make sense? All right. These variables, n1, n2, and ans, they were all declared up here. I mentioned to you the other day that if you declare variables outside of any function, they're called global. That means the whole program can use them. These variables, these two, are defined inside of this routine. That's why they need the word var. All right? But they're local. They're only known to this routine. So clearform does not know what valid input is and what button press is. This function right here does not know what these are. But this function right here does know what these three things are, and clearform does know what these three things are. So if something's global, it's known to everybody. If it's local, it's only known in a small area, for lack of better words. All right. So I'm going to keep writing. This is the longest routine that we have to write right here. So I'm still in this process entries. The first thing I want to do is validate n1. Now, please look on the screen. What should I be putting in there? It's not a joke. What should I be putting in there? What should go in that field? No. What should go in that field? A number. If we put something that's not a number, it's invalid. So if we leave it blank, it's invalid. If we put something non-numeric, it's invalid. Does that make sense? All right. So anything that's not a number is going to be invalid, except you could put a plus sign at the beginning or a minus sign at the beginning, or you could put in a single decimal place if you wanted to. Anything else is illegal. So the first thing I'm going to do is validate this. So if is n1. Now, agreed? You know what this means? It says you put something non-numeric in there. Okay, what am I going to do? Well, please look at the screen. What I want to do is if I put something in here like this, and I click this button, so I put in something non-numeric in this field, and I click one of the buttons, I want this to change from an asterisk to a message that says something like numeric input required. All right, so that's what I'm doing here. So I'm going to come in here and say this. doing the same thing twice. First, we're validating N1 to make sure it holds a number. If it doesn't, we're going to put a message there that says numeric input required. Then we do the exact same thing, except instead of saying N1 here and here, we say N2 here and here. Imagine it's your first day of school, all right? I'm not picking on you, but let's say it's your first day of school, and you walk in, and I mean you're in kindergarten, and the teacher doesn't know who you are, and she says, "What's your name?" And you say 27, and she doesn't believe you. Okay? No, I'm just saying, you just give her something that makes no sense like that. So you say 27, she goes, "I don't believe you." Names have to hold letters. You can't have a name with a number in it. And so she says again, "What's your name?" And you say, "It's Maya." Okay. That's validating your name. We're doing the same thing in here. Again, I'll come right back to it. Please look on the screen. What we're saying in here is if in here or in here, if in either here or here, we put in something that's non-numeric, change this asterisk so that it says numeric input required. But if we put in a number here and we put in a number here, make these asterisks go away so nothing shows. Does that make sense? That's the validation that we're doing. That's exactly right there what we're doing. This says if we put in something non-numeric, remember it's called a flag too, valid input. It's like we're saying it's not valid. Here if we put something in, we're saying it's not valid. So when we get down, we've either put two numbers into a number into each text box, or we put a number into one and not in the other, or we didn't put any numbers in at all. Aren't those what we have for our choices? Those three things. And if it's bad, we're doing this. If it's good, we're doing this. If it's bad, we're doing this. If it's good, we're doing this. All right? If we hit this else statement right here on line 28, and we hit this else statement right there, if we hit both those on lines 28 and 39, we put in two numbers. That's what we want. All right? So we can come down here now and we can say this. If valid input. Remember, this is a shortcut for if valid input equal true. So I just added this. If valid input, all right, calculate, answer. This is going to look weird. This dot ID, show answer. I don't expect that to make any sense. We'll go over it in just a minute. So we come in here, we validate our first number, we validate our second number, all right? We do this if both numbers are valid. i.e. both are numeric. So if they're both numbers, we've got to call a routine called calculate answer. I'm going to write that in just a minute. And if you said to me, okay, I'm typing this in, literally 1% of it makes sense. That's to be expected. I wanted to go through this first, so when we go over chapter 6 next week, you'll be like, oh, that's what that meant. Oh, that's what that meant. I wouldn't have even gone over this where I am right now, except that's what your authors did. I want you to be able to understand how to write this. So, looking at the screen here, if we did this, would you agree? Those are both valid numbers. Would you agree with that? So when I click this, I now want to call the routine that's going to add these two numbers and put the result here. If I click this, I want to call the routine that will subtract this from this and put the answer there, etc. All right, like I said, we're still going. So if our input was valid, we want to call this routine called calculate answer. Now look at this. What the hell is this? This .id. What the heck is that? Well, please look on the screen here. Notice how each button that's in here, look at the names of the buttons. Button sum, button diff, button prod, button quote, button mod, button clear. This is in the HTML. Remember, you give them an ID? We have given them an ID in the past so we can put CSS with them. But you also give them an ID so you can program them. And that's what we're doing now. So, coming in here, right underneath this, so I just finished this routine called process entries. And now I'm going to come down here, I'm going to write the next routine called calculate answer. All right. So we're going to write this routine right here. And in English, what we want to do is we want to ask the computer which button got clicked. Does that make sense? We're asking the computer which button got clicked. And the computer tells us, look on the screen, it says if you click this one, the button that got clicked has got an ID of button sum. If you click this one, the button has got an ID of button diff. Does that make sense? All right, so let's put in the code for it. Again, please look on the screen here. In English, this says if you click the button that's called button sum, call the routine called calculate sum. All right? We're going to do this right now 4 more times. So I'm just going to grab this code right here. All right? And make some changes. Diff, prod, quote, mod. So that's that whole routine. All right. Now we're going to have to write those routines, but the good news is almost each one of those routines is 3 lines long. That's it. Again, let me make this smaller like I did before. I want you to try at least, try to understand that what I'm saying here is this. This is saying right here. So I put a number in here. And I put a number in here. All right. This is saying right here, if I click this button, that's button sum, calculate the sum. If I click this button, it's the difference, so calculate the diff. If I click this button, it's the product, so calculate the product. If I click this button, it's the quotient, so calculate the quotient. If I click this button, it's the modulus, so calculate the modulus. So that's what it's saying. All right, we'll write those routines because they're very short.
The sum difference quote mod.
Sum?
So I should paste it 4 times?
Yes. But make sure you change it from button sum, calculate sum, to button diff, calculate diff, then button prod, calculate prod, button quote, calculate quote rather, and button mod, calculate mod. And the good news is there's not much more to write. We should be done in 10 minutes. Or so. When we did that first payroll program, if you remember, the first one we did, where you used that prompt statement and said, what's your name, etc., and we did all that stuff, that was kind of teaching you how to swim by taking you out into the kiddie pool. All right? Then we made it a little harder by putting in the functions. All right? That was kind of like taking you into a regular pool, but having you go in the shallow end. This, what we're doing now, I'm pushing you off the high dive. You got everything?
Yeah.
All right. So that's that routine. Under that routine, we're going to write a bunch of real small routines. So var calculate sum equal function return n1 plus n2. And what's cool is that's the whole thing. That's all of calculate sum. So look on the screen. I already have 3 of the 5 written. That's it for those 3. So this is what we just added. Do 1 and then copy it twice and make the changes. That'll handle all of our addition, all of our subtraction, and all of our multiplication. It won't handle division or modulo because we have to check to make sure we're not dividing by 0. We don't have to worry about that with sum or difference or product. We do have to worry about it for modulo and for mod. So we'll put that in just a minute. Both of you are caught up?
I'm typing in the one after this now.
Well, you could have just taken this one and copied it twice.
Yeah, I just pasted it.
Okay.
Oh, great, I'm good.
All right, so the next one, this one we can't just copy in. This is calculate quote. All right. Why can't we just paste it in? Or, because we have to check here. We have to say if N2, if the second number we put in is not equal to 0, then we can do the division. So if the second number is not equal to 0, we can just say the answer is equal to N1 divided by N2. It's cool, no problem. But if it is 0, we don't want to do that. We don't want to have the results say infinity. So what I did was I just said ANS, I just set it equal to 0. All right. And then I said grab this garbage that's right here. So that's the whole thing in gray. The homework for Chapter 4 asks you to create them like this, okay? If you want to just use prompts and alerts, that's okay. Yes. But I would like it if you made them modularized. All right, so if you do that, that's just fine. Yes. Now look on the screen if you would. Why? Because I'm going to copy this. This one I just did. I'm going to copy it, so I've got it in there twice. Why would I do that? Well, again, I'm making it smaller so you can see everything I'm doing. The only thing you have to change in here, look on the screen, right there, one thing. Change that from a slash to that.
Is your node value supposed to have an A?
Yes, it is. Thank you. Do you hear that? Okay. And probably the word attempt should have a T in it. But, it's... And the good news is we literally have 3 more lines to type and we're finished. So these two things, and this one, please change the name. That's calculate mod. These two are almost identical. The first 3 are almost identical. You're caught up? Are you caught up?
I just finished typing the whole bar. So I take all those lines. All you have to change is the division to multiplication.
No, the division to a percent sign. That's the modulo symbol.
Yeah.
Oh, one last thing. See where this is? See this line here? Look on the screen, please. See this line and that line? Instructor error. Instead of N1, make that N2. That's the one that holds the 0. Make this N2, make that N2. Okay, sorry about that. We literally have 3 more lines to type. That's it. All right, so let's put those in and see if it works. Var show answer equal function.
You change them all to the answer or just one?
These two. This one here and this one here. Just those two.
The mod and the float?
Yes. So for the answer, this is the last thing here, the show answer, $. And that's everything. This is the last routine that you should have to type in that's in gray up on the screen.
I'm looking really confused.
I will tell you, I can say this with almost 100% certainty from last year. Well, if you have not been reading the book, when we get to chapter 6, if you don't read it, you will fail the test. I just tell you that almost for sure. All right, it's definitely the hardest test to get through chapter 6. All right, so let me go back to my HTML. Run it. It may not work. I don't know. But 21:4 doesn't like something. Unexpected token. Line 113. So I got to go and hunt it down now. Oh, see that? I put that in there backwards. That was my error. Let's try it again. 21:4. Still doesn't like something. 127. Unexpected identifier. That's interesting. Oh, see this? See this line right here? That's window dot onload. You what? Well, it might have worked, but it won't work right all the time. All right, make it window period onload. Yeah.
What line is that?
It's right near the bottom.
Oh, I see that.
Make it window dot onload. Let's try it again. 21:4. Still doesn't like something. I spelled something wrong on line 45. You guys probably didn't. I did. See that? Calculate answer, which I spelled wrong. And looky. 21 plus 4, 21 minus 4, 21 times 4, 21 divided by 4, 21 modular 4. Clear doesn't work, so we'll have to fix that. That's okay. But what if we put a 0 here? Legal attempt to divide by 0. See that? Mm-hmm. What if we, with the 0 there, what if we modulo? Illegal attempt to divide by 0. Everything works, except for some reason, the clear isn't working. It's line 133. Cannot set property on click of null. Some of these errors that you're going to get in here, they're just terrible. They don't explain squat to you. You'll be like, what the heck is wrong? Sometimes I'll look at them and, you know what? I don't know. Well, look right here. Look on the screen. Can you see how this looks different than these? Can you see that? What's different?
The boldness. And there's no
Why?
quotes.
That's it. There's boldness because I forgot to put the quotes in.
I thought we were not supposed to. Oh, I put quotes.
So let's go back and run it again. 3318 plus works, minus works, times works, divide works, modulo works, 0 plus works, minus works, times works, divide, I get the error. Modulo, I get the error. Clear, come on. Well, I didn't clear this out. See that? So I got to fix that. That's all that's left. But I'm not saying, yeah, that totally makes sense to you. If you said, almost made no sense to me, that's what's to be expected right now. All right, so let me go back and look at my clear form right here. John. No, did he say he was going to meet you?
Yeah.
No, if he comes in here, where should I tell him you are?
Tell him on the break room.
Okay, I'll tell him that. And if you want to come back up here afterwards, if you'd rather work, I can open up the lab or the conference room for you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, sure. Thank you. Well, this isn't working. Oh, see anything wrong there? Like maybe I should learn how to spell value? Look on the screen, Maya. See this? Node value. Let's try running it one last time. Now, we took 53 minutes, and you wrote a program that's as hard as anything you'll do this semester, and as hard as a lot of the stuff you'll do next semester. I'm not saying it totally made sense. I'm not. But the good news is you've already got another copy of this that we did with the prompts, etc., right? You've already done that.
Are you talking about like the littler prompts?
With just the prompt and then the alerts, that stuff. All right. Plus, I don't remember if did we do this? Yeah. Yesterday we went in and we took, remember we also took this and modularized it. We wrote little functions. So what you should understand now is if I give you a problem and I say, here's the formula, like we did with the BMI. You should be able to write the program. You should be able to modularize it. All right, if you're like, yeah, I'm okay with that, that's fine. Now, you didn't probably hear this, Maya, but this is what I just, a little bit ago, this is what I said to Keegan. I want to make sure you hear it. All right, let's see. In this chapter, they redo the miles per gallon program on 131, so it works with this. All right? In this chapter, so that's page 131, they redo this email list, so it works with this. Hear me? I'd like you to do both of those. So I'd like you to do the program on 131. The code's all here. All right? It's all the HTML and the JavaScript. And if you want, you can add, somewhere in there they have the CSS for it too. And I want you to do the code on 133. It's not a lot of code. This is what I said, Maya, that you didn't hear before. All right? Look on the screen, please. With what you are supposed to do, the homework that I asked you to do for this. Let's just come in here. .133, I think it is. All the code is in there. All right. Again, you might have to go dig around for it a little bit. Please look on the screen, both of you. If you want to do this program just like this, you can. Totally fine. That's the way we just did it. If instead you want to use the prompt and the alerts to do this, that's also fine. So I don't care. You are doing 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3. There is nothing from Chapter 5 on here. So you can do them either like this or the other way. I'll tell you what, if you do them like this and you get them to work, you're not going to have any problems with Chapter 6. So the way you do it is up to you. The rest of the period is going to be a lab. Tomorrow when you come in here, we're going to go over the Chapter 3 stuff for the written test. We're going to take the written test. The rest of the period will be lab. Friday, Chapter 4. You with me? All right. And when you come in here next week on Tuesday, no class next Monday. Both heard that, right? No class next Monday. It's Veterans Day. That's why I'd asked you guys if either one of you were veterans. So there is no class on Monday. When you come in on Tuesday of next week, test, all period. Hands-on test, chapters 4 and 5. All right? And then the rest of the week we'll go on and we're going to do 6 and 7. All right? All that makes sense?
You said chapters 4 to 7?
4 to 5. 4 and 5.
I'm talking about 4 to hands-on test.
4 and 5. What that means, though, hey, you're a smart person. You know this. Anything on 1, 2, and 3 is fair game. But I'm not going to grab stuff just from 1, 2, and 3. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You should still know the stuff you needed to know for the last test. And if you're like, well, yeah, okay, good. Good. Chapter 6 is a long chapter, and I will use a word I wouldn't typically use, but it's a sucky chapter because there's just so much in it.